Hello, everyone. Welcome to our wonderful live stream sorry, my brain just completely froze right there. Anyway, my name's Nissa. I'm the owner of Magic of Paws, here to help you help your pets. And today we are specifically talking about socialization. So if you're watching the replay, please go ahead and put the hashtag replay down in the comments so that we can catch up and see what you think of the video afterwards. And if you're watching live, please drop a comment to let me know you're here and where you're watching from. And I specifically want to know, do you have a puppy? And if so, how old? So please tell me in the comments all about your puppy. I want to know. So we've been talking about this video in the description and in other social media posts as explaining why the first 4 months of your puppy's life are the most important to set them up for lifetime success. And the big thing behind that is that puppies, and I mean all animals, but we're talking today about puppies, go through different stages of development. And in between weeks 4 to 16 is called their socialization phase. And what that phase consists of is that their brain is going crazy. It's creating all these new connections, it's growing and expanding, and it's the best time, that 4 to 16 week window, that 3 months, is the best time to expose them to new things because they're going to be more curious than they are scared. So that's what we're going to talk about. Socialization, specifically in that 4 to 16 week window. People will use the phrase socialization beyond that window, and it's not the right term. So we are specifically talking about socialization between 4 to 16 weeks for a puppy. So what exactly is socialization? So socialization is a developmental process where puppies familiarize themselves with their constantly changing surroundings. It's how they work out what's safe and good and what's not so safe and not so good. So anything you want your puppy to cheerfully accept as an adult, people of all kinds, animals, things, situations, sounds, places, whatever it might be, you must introduce your puppy to in a positive manner in that 4 to 16 week window. Then you have to make sure that she stays comfortable with these for the rest of their life. So most people get their puppies at 8 weeks old. So that means you have 8 weeks to get this all done. A good breeder and a good rescue will do a lot of the socialization for you from that 4 to 8 week period, but you want to make sure that you're doing as much as you can from 8 to 16 weeks on your own. So I'm sure if you've ever had a puppy, you're sitting there going, but puppies already love everything. And they totally do. That's because they're in that socialization phase. Once that socialization phase ends, they get into a fear period. And at that point, they become wary of other dogs if they haven't met enough dogs. And down the road, it can become shy or growly around children or strangers unless they've enjoyed meeting a bunch of other people. So under-socialized dogs are at a greater risk of needing my services as a trainer on the expensive side of my services. So we're talking about developing behavior issues stemming from fear. So aggression, anxiety, agoraphobia, reactivity, whatever it might be, can all be prevented with proper socialization. So teaching your puppy that the world is safe can prevent these behaviors in the future. So how do you socialize your puppy? So me being me, if you know me at all, know that I like being organized and contrary to what my office looks like. So I always encourage people to come up with a list. Sit down with a piece of paper or a spreadsheet. I love me a good spreadsheet, and write down everything your dog will encounter in their life as an adult. So that's people, places, different things, whatever it might be. Think about everything that your dog is going to experience in their adult life. So let's just go through some. If you have any ideas, drop them down in the comments. We're talking going to the vets. We're talking all the different members of your family that they're going to meet. We're talking about thunderstorms. We're talking about getting their nails trimmed. We're talking about going to the groomer. All those different things, both scary and not scary, are things that we need to put down on that list. And then once we have our full list, we're going to go ahead and work through it methodically and systemically to make sure that they form positive associations with all of those items on our list. So we're talking cheers, praise, treats, whenever they encounter something new. So here's what I recommend. Go through your list and pick an item. Let's go with vacuum cleaners for today. And so you want your dog to happily accept a vacuum cleaner in their home. They don't necessarily need to love the vacuum cleaner, but you really don't want them shaking and shivering and growling and cowering whenever you get the vacuum cleaner out. So what you want to do is when they're young, you're going to expose them to the vacuum cleaner. So bring it out. Don't turn it on, just let them see it. If your dog seems a little bit nervous, go ahead and move further away from the vacuum. You want to make sure that you are keeping them comfortable, keeping them under threshold. If they already seem nervous just being in the same room as a vacuum cleaner that's not on, we don't want to turn the vacuum cleaner on. We don't want to bring it to them. We want to let them take the space that they need to get a little bit more comfortable. And then when they're more relaxed, try again. Try walking back up toward it. And as soon as she sees that vacuum cleaner, you're going to go ahead and give her treats and praise her for being such a brave little girl. On the other hand, if she shows absolutely zero fear of the vacuum cleaner, let her explore, check it out, sniff it out. If she's doing really well, maybe turn it on for a second or two. You just want to work at their pace and watch how they're doing. If they seem at all nervous at any point, stop, take a break, take a step back, and wait for them to calm down before going forward and trying again. Now, you want to go through and do this with everything on your list. And I always recommend rating every experience your dog has. Because if your dog really enjoyed something, whether it was a stranger or the vacuum cleaner or whatever it was, and they had zero problems, they think it's the best thing in the world, you want to spend less time on that in future and more time on the stuff that they didn't respond as excitedly to. So you want to make sure that you're keeping track on whether it was a positive experience or whether they still seemed a little nervous so that you can focus in your time, because we're talking about a really limited time window. 8 weeks is not that long as a puppy owner, because it's not like you took all 8 weeks off from work. You still have work, you still have your kids, you still need to make dinner every night. Plus you have potty training on top of all of it. And then you also have all those vet appointments, all those shots, everything that you need to get done as a new puppy owner. So there's not a ton of time. You want to make sure that you're using the time that you have the most effective way that you can, because the better job you do of socializing your dog when they're in this 4 to 16 week age frame, the better adjusted they'll be in long-term life. So dogs are great at making generalizations. They really are. So if you have, a bad experience with a tall man wearing a hat, your puppy is going to think poorly of all tall men in hats because that one time they had a bad experience. So what you want to do is, if she has an iffy experience with a tall man in a hat, you want to make sure that you're having a, as many positive interactions with tall men in hats as you can. You're going to become that crazy person who just approaches strangers being like, hey, would you mind saying hi to my dog? You know, if your dog seems comfortable, let them give her a treat. If she doesn't, just let her sniff them out. Let her explore. Don't push it. But you want to go ahead and keep track of what's going well and what's not so that you can notice patterns, or you can, focus your time on very specific things that you notice aren't going that well for her. So patterns are going to be your most important things to keep track of here, because if you start noticing a pattern, you can start disrupting that pattern. So if you notice that your dog does not like your mail person, does not like your neighbor, and does not like your vet, and the thing that those three all have in common is that they're men, then you want to go ahead and socialize your puppy to as many men as possible, so that'll have a positive effect on those others that they are going to be interacting with. Now, you don't necessarily need to have a million interactions with every man that your puppy is going to have in their life, but the more positive interactions they have in general, the better adjusted they will be. The more we expose them to as puppies, the more tools we give them in their toolkit as they get older. Because let's be completely honest here, 8 weeks is not enough time to show everything that you want your puppy to love to your puppy. It's not. There's not enough hours in the day in order to do that. Because if you think of how many things your dog is going to be exposed to throughout their lifetime, it's an infinitely long list. We can't even sit here and come up with everything because curveballs are going to be thrown our way. But the more things that we can positively associate for our puppy, the better they're going to be at handling those surprising new things down the road. So, one thing that people ask a lot is, like, how do I get my puppy ready for thunderstorms? Because if you have a puppy right now, the chances of you experiencing a thunderstorm in that crucial, you know, 4 to 16 week window is pretty slim at this time of year, at least here in Maine. So, can't necessarily expose your puppy to a thunderstorm because we can't make one happen. You can make the noises on your computer by going to YouTube and all that sort of stuff, but it's not quite the same. So instead, what I always encourage people to do are to play noise games with their puppy. And the way you go about doing that is you grab a bunch of noisy things that make different noises, whether that's pots or different toys, different noises on YouTube, whatever it might be, and you make a noise and give your dog a treat. That way, they're starting to associate a sudden noise with a treat, and that's going to get them a little bit excited to hear those weird, strange, sudden noises as opposed to being terrified. It's not going to be perfect at replicating what they're exposed to in a thunderstorm because we can't change the atmospheric pressure, we can't change the electromagnetic radiation in the sky. There's a whole bunch of stuff we can't control, but we can expose them to loud, sudden noises in a safe, controlled way. So I always encourage people to do that with their puppy. I also get a lot of people who come to me as a trainer being like, okay, so my puppy already knows sitting down and come and stay. So what's next? And it's just like, I would much rather you spend time with your puppy, exposing them to new things, taking them to new places, you know, and doing that work in those first 4 to 16 weeks, rather than working on things like sit or down or come. Because I can teach a dog at any age to do any of those things. I cannot create a new socialization period. Once they hit that 16-week window, the end of that 16-week window, their brain starts to change, and we will never have that opportunity again. So you really want to take advantage of it while it's here and focus on the stuff that you can only do for that socialization window. So expose them to as much as you can, create as many positive associations as you can in that time frame. Obedience and tricks and all that can wait until they're 17 weeks old. That delay is not going to make any difference for your puppy going forward. But by not exposing them to enough things, you could create yourself a bigger behavioral problem down the road. That's why we're seeing a lot of trainers are seeing some issues with puppies that were in that 4 to 16 week stage during the complete lockdowns across the world for the coronavirus. And the reasoning for that is because people were in their homes. They weren't going out beyond what they absolutely needed to do. And so these puppies became under socialized. They weren't exposed to enough stuff, certainly not to enough people. And in general, not to enough things and experiences and places, because we were all shut up. And we're seeing the behavioral impacts of that coming out in dogs with anxiety, with reactivity, even aggression. So I really encourage you to use this natural period in your puppy's development to set them up for success. I am, as I'm sure you guys know, if you've been around our page long enough, I specialize in anxiety in dogs. It's my jam. I love it. I have 2 dogs with anxiety. They both also have canine compulsive disorder. I love working with anxious dogs. I would also really love not ever having another anxious dog to work with, because when a dog comes to me with anxiety, they're suffering. And I would much rather avoid that suffering entirely by doing something as simple as proper socialization than have that dog come to me at all. you know, if I could, give one gift to all dogs, it would be a great socialization period. If I could ask for one tool to add to my toolkit as a trainer, it would be a time machine to go back and properly socialize these puppies. Just from my personal experience, my 2 dogs that I currently have were both not well socialized as puppies. Wish, I know for a fact, was not. It's been documented. She was actually attacked on a leash when she was in her socialization period by a German Shepherd. And to this day, Wish, who is 14, is terrified of German Shepherds. I've introduced her to all sorts. The only ones that she's ever gotten along with are the ones that are all black, just like her. Any other German Shepherd, she will bark, she will growl, she will pretend she is the biggest, scariest dog on the planet to keep them away. And that's just one example of how one event can impact a dog for their entire life. So what should have happened is, after she was attacked by a German Shepherd on a leash, what should have happened is that she should have been positively exposed to as many dogs as possible while she was on that leash, and exposed to as many German Shepherds as she could in a positive, reinforcing way. That would have reduced her fear going forward. And instead, when I adopted her, her leash reactivity was so intense that I actually dislocated my knee on multiple occasions trying to walk her when we were around other dogs. Boomer, on the other hand, is more of a funny story for his socialization. So Boomer, just looking at his behavior, again, I don't know this for sure. I haven't met his first owners. I haven't been able to ask them these questions. But looking at Boomer, I can almost guarantee that he was exposed to very few dogs and mainly to cats. during his socialization period because he plays like a cat. He doesn't realize he's 45 pounds. He's not a cat. He's huge. Like, he just thinks he's a big kitty. And it took him up until probably last year when he was, what, 3, to figure out that dogs don't play that way and that dogs play like dogs. He finally figured out a play bow last year, and he's so excited about this whole play bow thing that he does it way over the top. But and to the point where he actually scares other dogs because he's so enthusiastic about his play bow. So by him not being exposed to a lot of dogs, it didn't necessarily make him fearful. He joyfully accepts meeting other dogs. He's not afraid of them, but he can't interact with them because he doesn't know. He can't read body language. He doesn't know how to play. So when he comes here and hangs out at the resort with us, he doesn't want to be out in playgroup. He would much rather be here in the office, up here with my foster cats. Whereas Wish, on the other hand, has always gotten along great with dogs off leash. So she loves coming here and being out in playgroup. She adores it. She's a little much. She loves it a little too much. But if I were to put her on a leash and expose her to all those same dogs, she would be a very different dog. I've worked it took me close to 10 years to get Wish to the point where she could calmly be around other dogs while on a leash. And by calmly, I mean not trying to dislocate one of my joints. She still will bark, she will still growl, and that's just who she is. I can't undo what was done during her socialization period. It's why it's so important that you really should put as much time and effort into this period as you can. And it's also really important. Most people think of socialization as exposing their puppy to as many other dogs as possible. And that's not it. Taking your puppy for puppy play dates with a bunch of other puppies during their socialization period is not that useful. Puppies don't need to be exposed to more puppies. They need to be exposed to older dogs. They need to be exposed to dogs of different sizes. They've gotten plenty of puppy exposure when they were in their litters. What we need to work on now is exposing them to dogs that aren't like them. So older dogs, bigger dogs, littler dogs, whatever it might be, exposing them to a variety. Same thing with people. We need to make sure that we're exposing them to a variety of people. If, they mainly live at home with you and your kids, that's great, but you also need to expose them to the elderly. You need to expose them to people of different color. You need to expose them to people of different abilities, because a lot of dogs are terrified of walkers and wheelchairs because they were never exposed to them. So exposing your dog to as many different versions of dogs and people is super important. But it's just as important to expose them to places, things, and noises and situations. Those are all things that most people forget about when they're doing socialization, but are honestly some of the most important things. Because if you go to a place, you're going to find people. And if it's a dog-friendly place that you're going to, obviously, you're probably going to find dogs. So you want to expose them to as many different places, situations, noises, and by extension, the people and the dogs will come along with it. Does this all make sense? I think it does, but I'm also, up to my eyes in all of this every day. So if you have any questions about any of this, please drop them down in the comments and I will gladly answer them. I want to get back to some of the more technical parts of this, of the actual socialization, because, it's simple. It really is, and sometimes people overthink it. So you really want to make sure that you are using treats and praise, good puppy dog voices, when they are in the presence of something new. If you are walking away from something because your dog is afraid of it, you stop with the treats, you stop with the praise, because the new thing is no longer there. Then when you go back to the new thing, that's when you start the praise and the treats up again. So you want to make sure that you're associating new things with good things. So treats, praise, whatever their favorite toy is, whatever works for you and your dog. There's no one right way to do this. You just want to make sure that that association is being made between new thing and good thing. It's pretty simple. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I am going to go ahead and give you the rest of your evening to get ready for a wonderful weekend. Hopefully, looks like the rain has stopped. Hopefully, it stays that way for a bit. Anyway, that's all that I had for today. If you have any questions, always feel free to ask them in the comments or send us a message. I'm happy to answer them at any point. Um, and if you are looking for some resources, we are happy to provide them. We do offer a socialization session here. It's an hour-long group class that is basically set up to expose your dog to as many positive things as we can in that 1 hour. So it's lots of different um, textures, different noises, different dogs. We bring them into the grooming room here so they can see the table, they can go in the bathtub, they can see what the nail trimmers are, and get them exposed to all the different equipment. We also will sometimes turn on the vacuum cleaner, or we'll turn on the force dryer to get a crazy loud noise. We bring them up here to see the cats. There's all sorts of different stuff that we do in that time period, and I really encourage it if you do have a young puppy to go ahead and check our schedule to see if there's a socialization session coming up that works for you. If there isn't, there's always the option on our training website to go ahead and fill out a form that tells us what times do work for you as far as classes go. And we use that data to make our schedule going forward. So if we see that people really want Saturday at 10 a.m., which as of right now is the most popular time on that in that data set, we will tend to schedule classes for Saturday at 10 a.m. as opposed to scheduling them for Saturday at, you know, 8 p.m. because nobody wants that. So we use that data to help us set up our schedule. So if you are looking at our schedule and nothing works for you, tell us what does work, and can pretty much guarantee you it'll end up on our schedule at some point. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Thank you for joining me. As always, if you have any questions, if you want to reach out to us in any way, you are welcome to. Our website is www.magicofpaws.com. That's the best place to get all of our information, as well as to sign up for our services. So have a good night, everybody, and give your puppies a little extra love from me. Thanks.